At first, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Bibiana, as Patricia said. My academic name is Bibiana, and I'm a Brazilian academic researcher in creative writing, but I'm also a writer. And when I assume my creative voice, I cite my texts as Irka. Irka was my grandma name. So it's okay if you refer to me using any of these names. Irka is my pen name, I can say. Like most of the writers, I started my career writing and also reading, obviously. However, after some shy blog posts, I felt the need to deepen my knowledge. So I searched for creative writing workshops, and believe me, there are a lot of them in my city, Porto Alegre. The next step was the master's degree in literature, when I realized what my great interest in writing was. I believe that every person who ventures into making their innermost thoughts public does it because they are looking for something. My master's degree showed me the aim of my interest. Of course, I was fortunate to find a mentor who appreciated speculative fiction. And now I have to thank Professor Bernardo Bueno and also my current master's, Guto Leite. My first step towards academia introduced me to exciting researchers like my colleague Patricia Gonçalves Tenório. Estudos em Escrita Criativa, or the Creative Writing Studies program, was born in 2016, as our flag shows. Since then, Patricia and other professors have been working to develop writing, editing, and critical skills and expand the reading experience in writers' classes. These courses connect writers from all over Brazil. Back to my work in my master's class, I started to develop a novel based on a situation that has troubled me since childhood. And thus, Lauren was born. As a classification, Lauren falls within the horror novels. I can say that Lauren made me dive into several happenings present in my adolescent issues. My dive was so deep that it resulted in the main character and the title of the book. Like me, and you, and everyone, most teenagers face significant changes during that confusing phase of life. Hormones drive our mood. The way you feel and the way you express love changes. Adolescence is the moment when people realize that love can be romantic. And it is linked to desire, which is linked to sex. Lauren feels like a lonely girl who doesn't understand what is she feeling and why. Like most female teenagers, she doesn't feel loved or wanted. She fights to belong to the group, even though this group is hostile. Lauren's insecurities throw her back to search for affection. She has no way out, and the small possibilities of love are linked to harassment and rejection. Those situations push Lauren towards her only friend, a ghost, who lives in the woods that border the town. Confused and lonely, Lauren is left to accept the rules of a conservative religious community, or face everyone. Obviously, I took my account of the massive spread of neo-Pentecostal churches in Brazil. This is a reality in my country. Unfortunately, the church does not work only as spiritual support. It infiltrates the private issues of churchgoers and imposes rules. Those rules are linked to customs, especially women's behavior in society. Lauren suffers because she wants to obey her body, but does not have the maturity to face the church's power. At the time of Lauren's publication, I knew little about the horror production movement in Latin America. I just intended to tell a story with supernatural elements that intrigued me. While I was focusing on horror symbols, I got more and more impressed with how much horror is connected to women's sexuality. We know it's not a good connection. It's a method used for repression and persecution. These issues may answer the current movement of Latino women who write horror. However, there are other topics, such as the fight against domestic violence, the claim for free sexuality, and other political and social issues that Latin America countries share. I believe these subjects are the answer to the current movement of Latino women who write horror. As we know, and many theorists claim, there's a strong connection between the symbols in horror stories and women's sexuality. And I'm not just talking about the definition of the witch, considered the devil's lover and slave. I'm also talking about our Christian culture and its precepts. The vision of Mary, the Virgin who gave birth to the Savior of the most widespread religion in our continent, is noticeable in our culture and society's manner. Speaking of horror movies, we can see the use of religious symbols to cause fear. Most of the time, we realize that the images that refer to horror are linked to situations such as female pleasure, a woman's period, pregnancy, and motherhood. We know religious dogma is a precept too strong to overthrow. As an example, I would like to bring a famous book that was turned into a well-known film. Rosemary's Baby shows the drama of a young woman married to an ambitious actor. He's looking for a successful career and doesn't worry about negotiating his wife's health. But the story has other layers. It was written in the 60s, when the contraceptive pill determined women's sexual liberation. This freedom of choice regarding motherhood scared the most conservative groups and society as a whole. Another example that we can analyze, The Exorcist. The story shows a girl who had her body possessed by a demon. But let's take a look at the story's background. Regan is the daughter of a single mother who works as an actress. As readers, we can observe that there is some guilt for the abandonment and the change in the role of the mother. Of course, there is also the situation of the priest who lost his faith in a post-war and post-existentialist era. And talking about the era, there's a clash of generations. The counterculture, with its behaviors and new worldview, scared any mother who slept in the next room. The third example I will bring is the story with the most in common with Lauren has. Carrie was written by Stephen King in 1979. The author created a character who suffers from bullying and religious repression. Carrie has the same sexual issues as Lauren, even though she is 4 years older. The fear is there, along with emotions and hormones. And there are more ingredients in this cauldron. There is guilt and shame that women have carried since Eve and original sin. I didn't choose these 3 examples by chance. I chose them because they are stories that deal with women's issues, but they were written by men. As you can see, we still have a lot of fiction ahead of us until all possibilities of subverting precepts that rule society to this day are gone. And I bring some good news. Good news. Now we, readers can face this interesting movement of female writers in Latin America. And they have anger. Years of silencing served as a fuel for a vast literary production. The subjects expanded. They stopped orbiting situations of rape and violence, which are still so present in the daily lives of many women. They also extended to other subjects that are dear to us, such as non-motherhood, gender issues, career, and family. In a broader sense, female writers address social, economic, and political issues with their own particular eyes, especially in horror fiction that makes so much use of images and situations linked to women's sexuality. Readers are getting a chance to experience our point of view. And now I'm talking as a writer. It's correct to say that women are experiencing the freedom to write about anything they want. But the path is not as promising as it seems. In my country, until recently, publishers used to put male writers in evidence. Literary awards selected male curators who invited male judges who awarded male authors. From 2017, this discrepancy began to decrease. A national movement called Mulherio das Letras started to claim a greater number of women in all positions of production chain of books. The collective grew and spread throughout the country, and we realized that our claims as writers are similar. As a result of the pressure exerted, we observe an increase in the hiring of books written by women, as well as greater participation in awards. The guidelines of Mulherio das Letras, however, are not limited to gender issues. We are present in the fight against racism and homophobia. We are proud to say that in these 6 years we made important advances within the field of literature. Speaking of collectives, I would also like to talk about the work of independent authors and publishers in Brazil. Especially in horror genre, we hold many events to help spread national production. Initiatives such as the Reading Books are currently having a good moment. Booktubers make videos in which they review newly released books, and some specific awards for speculative fiction ensure greater visibility for authors. From my own experience, I'd like to quote the Clube de Leitura Escuro Medo, a readers club that works focusing on national contemporary production, and the Nidaba, a collective of women who write speculative fiction. Both initiatives work with independent writers and focus on promoting books and writers. My country, like the most of other countries, faces a decrease in attention span of readers. Some initiatives are promising. In addition to the examples that I brought, there is an increase in demand for postgraduate courses in creative writing. These findings are encouraging because we know the better we want to write, the more we should read. At the moment, we have 2 universities in southern Brazil that offer postgraduate programs, both located in southern Brazil. But we have 2 specialization courses at the northeastern states, like creative writing studies, that brought us to Frankfurt as researchers. These good initiatives are the support of a younger audience, expanded the themes, authors, and all the academic work. Academic perspective on literary genres has also been updated by his fresh eye. Maybe you can agree with this because you are a professor, postgraduate professor. Today, we can research several themes, and this diversity is very healthy for academia. These changes are welcome because they reflect on the teachers we will see working in the future. That makes me believe in a new breath when we discuss spreading reading habits and stimulating new readers. These changes are reflected in teachers' education and how they can promote their students' interests in reading. And this was my speech. And I just brought some examples of women writers in Brazil. This is Verena Cavalcanti, a really good writer and horror writer. This is a short story book. The next one is Paula Febi. Yeah, this is a novel, a really horror novel. And the next one is Larissa Prado. This is a really good novel also. And he works like a madness, this kind of subject in her work. Now I will present you my daughter, Lauren. It was released in 2019, and this is my new book. It's called Júpiter, Marte, Saturno. It's a short story book that was released last year. And that's all. Thank you.